Yeah, good evening, everybody. Am I audible? If I'm audible, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. Okay, thank you. So, today we'll be covering our second session on the current affairs. It will be very brief session aligned uh, towards both pre and mains. Uh, Coming to the brass tacks straight away, this is the front page news on both the Hindu as well as the Express regarding the new Supreme Court verdict given by a seven-judge bench. Now it states that Supreme Court has allowed quota within quota. Of course, it is subject to certain conditions which the Supreme Court has kept. Quota within quota का मतलब ये है कि within the reserved category, or let's say within the reserved category of the scheduled caste, or within the reserved categories of the scheduled tribes, the government can now notify subcategorization. This was generally taken as that few of the dominant castes or the dominant tribes, they corner all the benefits of the reservation, all the benefits of the affirmative actions that the government is taking. So possibly to avoid such occurrences, the government was looking for this quota within quota. There are few state governments which have already implemented this quota within the quota. However, it was challenged. Supreme Court has now allowed that. It says that the quota within the quota or subcategorization of the reserved category is allowed. However, it is subject to certain conditions. Now, once we'll cover this article in detail, we'll cover this today also as well as tomorrow also. There is uh, there is a small, I mean, there are two articles which are important on this in this regard. One is Article 15 and Article 16. Those are the only two articles that we'll be covering today. The rest we'll cover tomorrow. Okay. Now, I have taken this directly from the Constitution of India because it uh, obviates the scope of any error. And it is important because the questions are generally framed directly from the Constitution rather than any other material. Okay, Article 15 states it prohibits the discrimination. Now, on what all matters it prohibit the discrimination? That is RRCSP. You may remember the acronym as RRCSP: religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. Now, before that, you would see there is an only written. Only means, obviously you must have read in Lakshmikant that discrimination on other grounds is possible. Now, the second point, it again says the same thing, but it is regarding the disability. Disability means किसी को रोकना. Second, A and B, they are telling you as to from what you cannot stop. Now, this has a historical background because the people from the reserved categories or the people from now reserved categories then at that point the discrimination was such that they were not allowed to access certain areas, certain public areas, temple entry and likewise things. So uh, these two articles are basically addressing the sub part of these Article 15(2), subsection A and B. They are actually addressing these disabilities which were imposed. Now, that means now those are thrown open through constitution. However, it is of course prohibited to discriminate. The government cannot make any law which discriminates. However, the state can make law if it is positively discriminating for women and children, plus socially or educationally backward classes, or the scheduled castes or the scheduled tribes. Now, this is for any law. I mean, if the government wants to enact any law, then it can enact in the favor of positively discriminating. The second, we come to Article 16. Now, Article 15 was regarding any general law. Article 16 is particularly related to the government jobs, that is public employment. Again, it says there will be equality of opportunity. Equality of opportunity means everybody will be treated alike. There will be no discrimination on such grounds as mentioned or as highlighted here. Again, this is RRCSP plus the descent and residence. Descent means के आपके मतलब the background. Descent is a person is Indian, Iranian, or descent likewise. Residence is your, of course, place of residence or the place of domiciles. And one more important thing is generally in your uh, preparation. Now we think that since we are from a particular state, we cannot apply for any other state. Now this is very untrue. You can see that any public employment under the state cannot be discriminated upon the grounds of residence. So you are very well eligible to apply for any state public service commission. However, the catch which becomes important is the language. Now, no state government would want any individual to come from outside having no knowledge about the local language. I mean, there have been kids from Punjab in the services in other states also, kids from other states serving in Punjab. However, the catch is only language. If you clear the language, you can very well participate. Anyways, moving on further, requirement as to residence. Now, in 16(3), you will see that if there is any public employment, अगर कोई ऐसी सरकारी जॉब है जिसमें के requirement as to residence, मतलब कोई ऐसा एस्पायरेंट चाहिए जो कि वहीं पे रहता हो, उस एस्पायरेंट या ऐसा लॉ बनाने की पावर सिर्फ पार्लियामेंट के पास है. स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ऐसा लॉ नहीं बना सकती. जैसे now this is for public employment, this is not for private employment. Private employment में you must have heard Haryana का case that they had reserved 50% jobs, or rather even there is one more state recently that has also reserved jobs for the local population, but then that did not stand the scrutiny of the Supreme Court. It could not pass the yardstick of the Constitution. So likewise, requirement as to residence is the sole prerogative of the parliament and for the public employment. Okay. Then this is the basis of the reservation for any backward class of a citizen, any backward class of citizens. The reservation in terms of any appointment or the post can be given by the government. Then in matters of promotion, we'll see a few cases tomorrow. This is just to build you up as to what are Article 15 and 16. You can go through in your own time, and tomorrow we will discuss its detail. It's a very vast topic. If you will cover in single day, we will get bored out of it. Nonetheless, okay, then we came on to the reservation in matters of promotion. as well as unfilled vacancies. Now, if a reservation vacancy is advertised in 2024, and let's say it doesn't get subscribed, then in 2025 also it has to come as a reserved vacancy only. It cannot happen that the vacancy goes unfilled and then uh, it is shifted to the other category. Anyways, then religious and denominational institution. Now again, even for those institutions like religion, जैसे SGPC है, the government can anytime say that the top man, the top boss of that institution or any other post of that institution shall be manned only by the person of that religion, right? Finally, the latest, the reservation for economically weaker section, maximum of 10%. Now, if you happen to see on the in the previous um 4 16.4, you can see that uh, there is no this percentage mentioned. However, in terms of EWS, economically weaker sections, the percentage is mentioned. So its implication is that in case the government wants to change the reservation percentage for the scheduled castes or scheduled tribes, it doesn't need to go through constitutional amendment. It can do it without constitutional amendment. However, in case of EWS, if there is to be any change made in the percentage, that has to, I mean, percentage in the sense it going above. The constitution limits it maximum to the 10%, and if the state wants to go beyond 10%, then it has to amend the constitution. That's all for Article 15 and 16. As I said, we'll cover the resolution part in maybe another one or two more lectures, and then I think you should be good to go in that. Now, this is a very hot and happening news these days. What is indexation? Now, indexation, I know it is not visible, but you need not to worry about that. जो चीज समझानी है वो मैं ऐसे ही समझा दूंगा. There is an example on the next page. Now, the government has withdrawn these indexation benefits. We just know what we just need to know what is indexation benefits. Now, here is a very simple example how this indexation works. Now, let's say a person has purchased anything, or let's say a house of rupees 10 lakh. Now, after paying 10 lakh, after a few years, he wants to sell that house and he has sold it for 17 lakhs. Now, you leave this profit, don't read this profit. Now, हमारे पास 10 lakh इस कॉलम को आप छोड़ ही दो. 10 lakh का उसने हाउस लिया, 17 lakhs का बेच दिया. दैट मीन्स 7 लाख का उसको प्रॉफिट हुआ. जब 7 लाख का प्रॉफिट हुआ तो टैक्सेबल अमाउंट इज 7 लाख. 7 lakhs के ऊपर उसको 7 लाख के ऊपर उसको टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा. Now this is without adjusting to the inflation. Now when we adjust it to the inflation, adjusting it to the inflation means कि आज की डेट में उस 10 लाख की कीमत जो है वो इट्स इक्वल टू 12 lakhs. जैसे आप सिंपल एग्जांपल लो कि जो आज 10 रुपए की चीज आ रही है, कल को वो 12 रुपए की चीज, कल को वही चीज 12 रुपए की आएगी. सेम इज द केस है. आज कोई घर 10 लाख का है तो इन्फ्लेशन को अकाउंट करते हुए कल को वही घर 12 लाख का है. तो तो इस सेकंड वाले केस में जब वो बंदा घर सेल आउट करता है तो उसकी नॉमिनल वैल्यू लेते हैं, इंडेक्स्ड वैल्यू लेते हैं 12 लाख. जब हम इंडेक्स्ड वैल्यू 12 लाख लेते हैं और वो सोल्ड आउट हो रहा है 17 lakhs में, दैट मीन्स ही इज हैविंग द प्रॉफिट ऑफ 5 lakhs. नेचुरली 7 लाख के ऊपर अगर 10% लगाओगे तो 70,000 बनेगा. 5 लाख के ऊपर 10% बनाओगे 50,000 बनेगा. तो ऑब्वियसली देर इज अ डिफरेंस ऑफ 20,000 इन द टैक्स अमाउंट. द गवर्नमेंट हैज टेकन दिस indexation off. The government says that indexation will not be considered. Now, this is what is, although there is some more nitty-gritty to it, but then as far as indexation is concerned, I think this example is good enough that anybody who has not understood, I think all clear. You can unmute and tell me. Uh, Jashan not understood? Okay. Anyways, so we'll go through it, rush through it again. Suppose you have taken anything of rupees 10 lakh. Now you are selling it for 17 lakhs, right? The benefit that accrue to you 7 lakh. Then now if the benefit that accrue to you is 7 lakh, tax you will pay on rupees 7 lakh. Now this is without considering inflation. Once we consider inflation, then if we index it to the inflation, then the cost increases. As I said, if you purchase anything for rupees 10 today, tomorrow you will purchase the same thing for rupees 10, 12, 15, depending upon the inflation. Now, if the inflation is such that the new amount is rupees 12 lakh, again the selling amount will stay the same, because that is not changing. That is the current transaction. 12 lakh is, once you have indexed, we have counted it towards from that point. And that makes it 12 minus 17 minus 12 as rupees 5 lakh as your profit. If rupees 5 lakh is your profit, that means that you will pay the less amount of tax. This is indexation. अब गवर्नमेंट ने क्या विड्रॉ किया है कि वो प्रॉफिट काउंट करते हुए इंडेक्सेशन नहीं होगी, तो यू विल बी पेइंग टैक्स ऑन रुपीज 7 lakh itself. However, they have reduced the tax. 10% था तो 10% की जगह उन्होंने 8% कर दिया. Likewise, if that thing is reduced, again the amount will come roughly the same. Anyways, now just a minute. Okay. Now this is again very important. You will see Wayanad, there are landslides going on. These are the different cases wherein people have been found. Need not to go into the news per se. News are very individualistic news, not important from your exam perspective. Then again here, floods to heat waves. Now this is important. Cities with corporation to get own disaster management body. Now this will be coming as an amendment to the Disaster Management Act 2005. It has already been presented in the Lok Sabha. The discussions are going on. Once the bill passes, it becomes an act, we will discuss it. Suffice to know at this stage is that at present, the structure, we'll straight away go to the structure. Okay. At present, we already have the 3-tier structure. This is authorities. NDMA is National Disaster Management Authority, SDMA is State Disaster Management Authority, DDMA is District Disaster Management Authority. Now we already have these 3-tier structure. However, for the big cities with corporations, I mean, they are cities which have multiple districts inside it, right? So those cities will have a separate disaster management body, and cities like Chennai, cities like Bangalore, cities like Mumbai, those are too huge for a single body to maintain that. तो इसलिए जो बड़ी cities हैं वहाँ के लिए disaster management body एक there is another separate body which is being created. Okay, nonetheless जब ये आ जाएगा, पास हो जाएगा, we will discuss it, because उससे पहले discuss करने का फायदा नहीं है. Reason is के there will be many changes. However, what is important from our perspective is that we should go through Disaster Management Act first, and what exactly it is, what are the schemes of things within the Disaster Management Act 2005, and then we see the amendment. Okay. Now we have Disaster Management Act. Disaster management, its definition, very simple. This is just, I mean, you got to cram it otherwise. But then it is important that you understand it also. You will not be you will it is least likely that you will be writing this. But if you do not find anything else, I mean disaster management के मेंस के perspective से बोल रहा हूँ कि if you do not find anything else to write as an introduction, so this is the best way, one best way to go, that you define it according to the act. Okay, management of it is defined as organization and management of resources. Organization means how your departments, your manpower is organized. It is structured. How it is structured, right? Management of resources and responsibilities dealing with humanitarian aspects of emergencies, in particular preparedness, response, and recovery, in order to lessen the impact of disaster. Go through in your own time. Important is for pre, it came into force in 2006. This is one important fact. Okay. Then again, it is management of disasters. Purpose क्या है इसका? To effective management of disasters. Multidisciplinary focus है. You will see नीचे जो मैंने framework ये बना रखा है उससे ही पता चल रहा है कि it is multidisciplinary. Anyhow, Disaster Management Act, right? Now, this is, if you remember this thing, this is institutional framework can straight away be asked, right? I'll tell you one more thing after this. Okay. Authorities, as I said, NDMA, SDMA, DDMA, they are established through the Disaster Management Act. Now there will be one more added here. Institution, National Institution for Disaster Management. Forces, National Disaster Response Force. Again, इसमें funds भी आएगा, but I have not covered it. That I'll cover separately. Then executive committees, National Executive Committee and State Executive Committee. इसमें if you see, I have not written SDRF. SDRF is State Disaster Response Force. SDRF, because it is not established under Disaster Management Act. Now, this again can be asked in prelims. The Disaster Management Act establishes, or rather जब तक आपका prelims आएगा तब तक तो because जो अभी amendment हो रही है Disaster Management Act में, उसमें they are giving it that SDRF should also be established under DM Act. So it will be a new thing. So that can be framed as a question for prelims. Okay. Functions of NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority. I have given it very simply. NDMA is a body. I have not given the details of NDMA per se because I would wish you to see it for yourself. NDMA, the most common questions asked in test series and all is who heads the NDMA? And NDMA stands for National Disaster Management Authority. Who heads the NDMA and how many members are there? So that you may search and remember it. Anyways, further it is laying down the policies on disaster manage functions. क्या-क्या function करती है NDMA, क्या-क्या function करती है. Then national plan approve करेगी, ministries के plan approve करेगी. Even जो गाइडलाइंस देनी है स्टेट अथॉरिटीज को कि वो अपने प्लान कैसे बनाए, जो गाइडलाइन देनी है अपनी मिनिस्ट्रीज को कि वो अपने प्लान कैसे बनाए, जो सब ये प्लान बनाएंगे उनकी कोऑर्डिनेशन कैसे करें, राइट. रिकमेंड प्रोविजन ऑफ फंड्स जो हैं फंड्स, इवन फाइनेंस कमीशंस आर आल्सो डेडिकेटेड सेपरेट फंड्स फॉर डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट. And the reason is obvious that these things, the disasters are going to increase as even in the near future, not only distant future, in the near future it shall be. There is every possibility of increase in the disasters because of the climate change. So recommendation of funds comes from NDMA. Funds naturally comes from Ministry of Finance. But then recommendations come from here as well as from Finance Commission also, right? Then National Institute of Disaster Management, इसके लिए भी policy और guidelines NDMA बनाते हैं. Then National Executive Committees, अब NDMA को कौन preside कर रहा है? That is the Prime Minister. He is heading the एनडीएमए। एग्जीक्यूटिव कमेटी, नेचुरली एग्जीक्यूटिव कमेटी, एग्जीक्यूटिव परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव ही हेड करेगा, दैट इज सेक्रेटरी लेवल ऑफिसर, राइट। Okay, then SDMA, parallel to NDMA is SDMA, headed by the Chief Minister and 8 other members, right? State also have State Executive Committee on the similar lines. State center में we have Cabinet Secretary, state में we have Chief Secretary, likewise. Okay, district, again this is also important for pre, जो DDM में है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी है, उसको हेड करते हैं द डीएम, डीएम, डीसी और डीएम, whosoever is the appointment there. प्लस इसके एक को चेयर पर्सन भी होते हैं, द चेयर पर्सन इज डीसी और डीएम, द को चेयर पर्सन इज द इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव फ्रॉम द एरिया, राइट। दिस आई हैव ऑलरेडी कवर्ड अ बिट। नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट 2004 में बना था ये। उस टाइम पे जो नोडल मिनिस्ट्री होती थी डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट की, वो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर होती थी। इसके बाद से वी हैव दिस थिंग, डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट एक्ट। अभी एट प्रेजेंट इट इज मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ होम, एट प्रेजेंट इट इज द नोडल मिनिस्ट्री इज मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ होम। The Disaster Management Act of 2005 granted statutory status to the National Institute for of Disaster Management. It is a deemed university and institute of excellence. These are some of the things which I have highlighted, which they can anytime be asked or framed as a question for prelims. Okay. Then National Disaster Response Force, headed by an IPS officer. 12 battalions it has. इस पे डेपुटेशन पे जाते हैं बंदे। डेपुटेशन मतलब एनीबडी हु इज एक्चुअली सर्विंग इन बीएसएफ, ही विल गो फॉर 2-3 years to the NDRF. He'll serve there for a certain period and then go back to the parent organization. Okay. Now, even if you see, if you happen to see this, now इससे मेंस का क्वेश्चन कैसे बन सकता है? Now, see how complex is this. There is, of course, this can easily be scrutinized and rather shortened up, right? Or it can be expanded both ways. पेपर के perspective से you got to know के what all changes can be made to this, right? अब जैसे मैंने ये बोला कि उसकी 12 battalions हैं, सारे अलग अलग उससे आ रही हैं। कोई बीएसएफ से आ रहा है, कोई सीआरपीएफ से आ रहा है, कोई सीआईएसएफ से आ रहा है, कोई आईटीबीपी से आ रहा है, कोई सीमा सुरक्षा बल से, सशस्त्र सेना बल से आ रहा है। One thing is they are not trained together. Second is that these are paramilitary forces which are trained on more so on law and order aspects. Now you are getting them to do disaster management. So likewise, there are certain points which you can think of right from looking at these two as to how things can change, how things can improve. Similarly, the role of this seems to very limited. There is nothing at state level. State levels can be integrated, right? So these are the points which you can think of and write once it comes to the mains. Okay, this is again very simple as to state की responsibility क्या है। जो जो यहाँ पर इसकी एनडीएमए की responsibility है, almost parallel to that is central government's responsibility. Obviously, measures it deems necessary for the disaster management, coordination, recommendation to state governments, allocation of funds, preparedness, and how to respond to the disaster per se. Okay. Central ministries and departments, nodal agency. Now, simply if there is, let's say, a disaster, for example, there could be any agriculture disaster. In that agriculture disaster, the Ministry of Agriculture has to be nodal agency. Nothing a Ministry of Road Transport or Highways cannot be. So likely the specific disaster is for specific ministry to handle. Then again, NCMC, this is National Crisis Management Committee headed by the Cabinet Secretary. These things are very simple. Other role is basically role ज़्यादा नहीं आएगा. What is written is in Disaster Management Act is this is more important. The structure is more important. Responsibilities here are more important. How can this be improved is more important, right? Because there is nothing concrete here. This is just basically the steps. Again, this NCMC. Generally, you can be confused as to the National Crisis Management Committee is headed by Home Cabinet Secretary, Finance Secretary, Home Secretary, or rather Home Minister or the Prime Minister. So it is Cabinet Secretary, right? Other important institutional arrangement. Again, these are only the other important institutional arrangement. By this we mean who will और कौन सी ऐसी एजेंसीज हैं जो कि डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट में हमारी हेल्प कर सकती है. आर्म्ड फोर्सेस हैं, देन सीएपीएफ है. हमने ऑलरेडी देख लिया कि सीएपीएफ से मैन पावर जा रही है, बट वो मैन पावर एनडीआरएफ में जा रही है. तो एनडीआरएफ की मैन पावर तो लगती ही लगती है जब डिजास्टर आ जाता है. सीएपी की खुद की बटालियंस भी जाती हैं जब भी डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के लिए जाती है. स्टेट पुलिस फोर्सेस, फायर सर्विसेज, होम गार्ड्स. नाउ अगेन इम्प्रूवमेंट वाले पॉइंट्स. देखो, स्टेट पुलिस सर्विसेज अगेन ट्रेन फॉर लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, नो स्पेशलाइज, उनको स्पेशलाइज ट्रेनिंग नहीं है. फायर वाले फिर भी आपने देखे होंगे कि फायर के लिए स्पेशल प्रेपरेशन है, बट दैट इज रिलेटेड टू फायर ओनली, दैट इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू फ्लड्स. सो लाइकवाइज मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी यहाँ पर भी हो सकता है. इनको भी मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी स्पेशल फोर्सेस स्पेशल ट्रेनिंग दी जा सकती है. अगेन एट स्टेट लेवल इटसेल्फ वी हैव सीन एनआईडीएम तो है बट एसआईडीएम्स नहीं है, राइट? तो दीज आर ऑल वे फॉरवर्ड वाला पॉइंट्स. तो दैट हैज टू बी वेरी स्ट्रांग. इफ यू हैव टू एंड योर आंसर ऑन अ वेरी स्ट्रांग नोट टू गैदर मार्क्स. देन होम गार्ड्स, सिविल डिफेंस एंड होम गार्ड्स, अगेन सेम थिंग. दे कम्युनिटी जो सॉरी इसमें क्या है कि आप प्रिपेयर्डनेस की जिम्मेदारी और अवेयरनेस की जिम्मेदारी इनको दे सकते हो, सिविल डिफेंस एंड होम गार्ड्स को. दे आर नॉट वेल ट्रेन्ड बट देन एटलीस्ट दे कैन पास द मैसेजेस एटलीस्ट. लोकल इलेक्टेड बॉडीज, जो भी हमारे पंचायती राज इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं या थर्ड टीयर ऑफ गवर्नेंस है, उनके भी जो मैन पावर है उनको भी ट्रेन किया जा सकता है. कम्युनिटी पार्टिसिपेशन, अगेन non-governmental organization, self-help groups, National Cadet Corps, NCC, National, this is NSS, those kids who are in the colleges, Nehru Yuva Kendra Sansthan, then workers of National Rural Health Mission, Integrated Child Development Scheme. So likewise, though even the members of these can be employed, right? International cooperation, we have already seen how India is responding to any international mishaps, like in earthquake in Nepal, or last year there was an earthquake in Turkey. So diplomacy plays an important role here, right? So with this disaster management, we are done with disaster management. Hereafter, there are few points from PIB. Now these are the okay, these are the publications which I have written. It is very important for mains. Now, generally, if we are asked as to conservation of aquatic species, we can still write something. But once we are asked conservation of marine species separately and conservation of fresh species separately, then it is very difficult to frame an answer. But if you happen to see the previous year questions are asked very specific. They are extremely specific. So here are a few points which you can go through as to how the conservation of marine species can be done. First is जो कोस्टल स्टेट्स हैं उसमें एक नेटवर्क ऑफ प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज, पीएस जो बोलते हैं, उसमें बनाया है. दैट प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज आर एस्टेब्लिश्ड अंडर वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट. देन देर आर कोस्टल एंड मरीन साइट्स हैं जिनको कि हमने इंपॉर्टेंट कोस्टल मरीन बायोडाइवर्सिटी एरियाज बनाया है, बायोडाइवर्सिटी एरियाज. Then Wildlife Protection Act. अब इसमें thousands of species are written. I think more than 3,000 species are written in uh, as protected species, right? Then coast guards. Now we normally do not see coast guards in the conservation aspects, but then if it is there, and these are the special points which will fetch you marks. कोस्ट गार्ड्स, उनको पावर दी हुई है कि वो एंट्री जो है वो रेगुलेट कर सकते हैं, सर्च कर सकते हैं। एंट्री आई मीन दे कैन एंटर एनी प्रीमाइसेस, सर्च कर सकते हैं, अरेस्ट कर सकते हैं, डिटेन कर सकते हैं, राइट? ओके, अगेन in your own time you can go through these. I have highlighted the important portions and let's rush through now. uh, I'll come back to this. Okay, important point: India is second largest aluminium producer in the world, third largest lime producer, fourth largest iron ore producer. Again, important facts for main. They are coming from PIB. Now, they are coming from PIB and particularly highlighting because such things are asked. I shown you other day the question. There was very in I think 2019 they had 19 or 20 they had asked. India is the highest exporter. Which country is the highest exporter of rice? So those kind of questions still they have to have the government backing. That's why I'm referring to PIB. Okay. Then uh, Ministry of Tribal Affairs. This is something now. प्रधानमंत्री जनजातीय विकास मिशन, इसकी इम्प्लीमेंटिंग एजेंसी इज ट्राइफेड। ट्राइफेड क्या है? ट्राइफेड एक कोऑपरेटिव बनाया है जो कि ट्राइबल्स जो प्रोडक्ट बनाते हैं उनकी मार्केटिंग के लिए बनाया है, ट्राइफेड, राइट? तो इसकी मार्केटिंग अब करता कैसे है? इनकी मार्केटिंग तो ट्राइब्स इंडिया के आउटलेट हैं, प्लस ट्राइब्स इंडिया .com पे इनकी प्रोडक्ट्स हैं, प्लस अमेजोन, फ्लिपकार्ट, पेटीएम, स्नैपडील, दिस इज गवर्नमेंट ई मार्केट प्लेस, राइट? So likewise, this is how TriFed is helping. These are only points which will help you in writing what the government is doing to improve the conditions of tribal. Social justice वाले में ये points mention करिए जा सकते हैं, right? Even polity also these points will be important. Okay. Now these are the two upcoming news. Governors conference, center state relation में this is important. Center state relation में now the government, Delhi government, the center government wants the governors to be more assertive. Already we are seeing the conflicts between the governors and the state governments. There have been acts, there have been bills which have been passed, but those bills have not been given assent by the governors. Article 200 was very much in news last year. So we'll discuss it some other day, but then this is an upcoming story. It will further develop. Once it will develop, we'll discuss. This is again in polity, which is important. The bill has been introduced, or rather, not the bill, but he has just said, Raghav Chadha is an MP from Punjab. He just said that the age of MP election should be 21. Now, if you compare it with United Kingdom, England में MP की election के लिए the age is 18, and I guess everybody here is above 18. So you can understand that what he is referring to is that we are a young country with old politicians. This is what he wants to change. So this can is there a case for lowering the minimum age for elections in India? For this also your arguments has to be ready. Either this way or that way, you have to have arguments ready on both the sides. You can cite the demographics. You can cite that there is no retirement age in politics. Not only in India, even if you see the elections at the highest level, Joe Biden has to recede from the elections. he in one of the press conferences he mentioned the president of Ukraine as president of Russia. Now it is very I mean difficult to handle such situations in such age, and that too of such responsibility. So this is how this thing is developing as to should is there a chance, is there a case for lowering of the age. Okay. GST. Now I have put this up just to tell you how the questions are asked from GST. Here are the questions which have been asked from GST. GST किस पे, which all exemption किस किस पे है, right? uh, this was asked in 2018. जब 2017 में GST आया था तब मतलब आने वाला था implementation of GST. तो यू गॉट टू सी कि किस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस उसमें आ रहे हैं. अगेन इट वाज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट till 2020 they have asked the questions on GST also, right? So this gives you a basic idea. These two slides will give you the basic idea as to how the questions are asked, how the questions are framed, and what should you look for in the newspapers. Anyways, uh, yeah, okay. The second last topic for the day. We discussed it yesterday that as I said, Fed rate cut. We discussed yesterday Fed rate cut. US rate cut means US की जो फेडरल रिजर्व बैंक है, दे विल कट द रेट्स. यूएस में जो लोन्स हैं उनके रेट्स कम हो जाएंगे. तो नेचुरली अगर वहां पर लोन्स के रेट कम हो जाएंगे तो इन्वेस्टर के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखो तो इन्वेस्टर तो ज़्यादा इंटरेस्ट चाहेगा. इन्वेस्टर चाहेगा कि मैं आगे जहाँ पे पैसा इन्वेस्ट करूँ वहाँ पे रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट ज़्यादा हो ताकि प्रॉफिट उसको ज़्यादा है. तो अगर यूएस में रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट ज़्यादा कम हो जाएगा तो नेचुरली the money will shift to the developing economies. The Sensex and Nifty end at a fresh high on US Fed rate cut. तो इसको अगर हार्ड एंड फास्ट समझना है तो यूएस में अगर रेट कट हुआ तो इंडिया में सेंसेक्स विल इम्प्रूव, इंडिया में निफ्टी विल इम्प्रूव. And this is what you got to remember in this. And second, let me see if it is visible. Yeah. This one more thing. BSC is a 30 share index, and where it is written. Okay, you might remember it from your own. BSC is a 30, मतलब इंडेक्स क्या है? इंडेक्स है कि वो जो 30 शेयर जा रहे हैं उसका एवरेज काइंड ऑफ इट indexed to something. Okay, BSC is 30 and Nifty is 50. The 50 share index Nifty, that also Nifty 50 ऐसे करके याद रखो, right? Okay, so the last news for the day. वेनेजुएला में इलेक्शंस हुए थे. ऑपोजिशन बोल रही है कि इलेक्शंस आर रिग्ड एंड दे वांट टू प्रोटेस्ट. आईआर में बस इतनी सी न्यूज़ बहुत होती है कि कहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है. दिस न्यूज़ इज गुड इनफ. आईआर में इससे ज़्यादा जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Basic nomenclature is asked, not much. So thank you. That's all for the day. We are through with today's presentation. You can access that presentation on the Telegram channel. Right. Go through it once. It is not more than 15-20 minutes job, but then a lot of points will be there with you to write. Thank you.